It's Mike and Shuan. We're talking tickets, and we're talking about how all ticket stubs are not created equal. A debut ticket that basically was printed after the game, and much more. And I got to find the video. I'm finding it. So no video tonight because I didn't find it. So let me see if I can find it. I don't know what happened. They got me. I got all my things organized, and then I can't find the good old video. And all right, here it goes. Man, struggle bus is tonight.
I know. I know, especially since Howard's video is so awesome. And
he took it to a whole nother level. It's like the yin and the yang. He's got like the crazy up-tempo new school, and we got the
yeah, old school. Perfect.
Well, all right. So I guess we can start.
Yeah, let's get started.
All ticket stubs are not crazy. So I've talked to some people before, and one thing that's been brought up is, you know what, like, how do you value stubs versus fulls? How are they valued in the market? There's different stubs that are, some look really good and some look like trash. And then the fulls, some don't look that great. So, I brought out like about 7 different examples that I wanted to show and kind of get your thoughts and kind of show the price differences. So let me pull up my little screen. All right. So from the get-go, so here's a ticket. This is, do you recognize this one? I know it's not in your wheelhouse.
2000 All-Star Game.
So this is the Vince Carter Slam Dunk Contest. I know this one, right? Come on, the Vince Carter Dunk Contest.
I've heard of it, but I don't know I wouldn't be able to tell you, no.
That's right. You are a baseball man. So this is it's kind of like known as the greatest dunk performance of all time. And it goes for about $500 in general condition, decent condition. And this is the stub version. So, well, what's the full look like? Well, what should that be valued at? Well, this is kind of a little example where the full and the stub, it's not much different, right? I mean, it's got the little tab on the bottom, but they're basically the same thing, except for the tiny little tab. And this full kind of goes for about double, about $1,000 to $1,500. I mean, just kind of before we jump all into this, where do you sit on the whole stub full fence?
Well, I personally prefer the stubs just because they're usually a lot less expensive, and I prefer just to have a copy. But I understand the reason why fulls are more valuable always is because they're more rare. It's really a question of rarity. And so, whether it has, just a small little stub or what, they're presumably harder to find because somebody didn't go to an event that was sold out, right?
Yeah, to me, it's the two things for the value of these stubs. It's rarity, and I think for me, I don't feel like eye appeal is taken into consideration enough. We'll show different versions of stubs. This is like the most basic version of here's a stub and here's a full that looks almost exactly like the stub, but is not because it's the little tab. I mean, it's nice. It's more like, you got the top and the bottom. It's a little more eye appeal, but it's kind of just, not a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go to the next version. So here's a good one. Do you recognize this one?
I do. Yeah, that's the first NBA three-pointer in history.
You are correct, but it's also the Larry Bird debut. So this thing is torn in half. Unless you're hardcore into the ticket world, you have no idea what it is. You have to look at the date, Google it. You see Celtics, you may think real hard and be like, well, is this Larry Bird's something debut? Oh, Larry Bird's debut. Okay. Well, it goes for about $5,000. Well, this is kind of the opposite of what you would compare to on the earlier Vince Carter ticket. Now look at this. Take a look at the full, right? Night and day difference.
Yeah.
And this, I think, it's definitely taken into consideration, but the eye appeal, I mean, it's not even comparable, right? And I feel like if you were to show these two items to a non-collector and be like, hey, look what's sitting on my mantle over here. What do you think? Well, if you showed them the stub, they'd be like, dude, like it's just like a torn piece of paper. But if you showed them this, they'd be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. You got the logo and the number one and the bird.
Yeah.
So that kind of retails closer to like 20K, 4x.
Yeah. Have you ever seen one of these with any of the logo on it? I don't think I've ever seen one torn even lower than this one.
No, usually when the stubs, they tore the top. So when you get the stubs, they almost always look like this little itty bitty thing. And now about everybody gets them signed because Bird will sign. Yeah. But this one kind of shows you that multiple, but just the eye appeal is drastically different.
Yeah. Yeah. Good example.
And here's another example. So this is this is one I really like to show. So this, you recognize this one?
Immaculate Reception.
Right. This is I think we had this as like number 7 or number 8 overall. So there's quite a few of these ripped ones out, and the lower the rip, usually the more they go for. So stub, rip, show partial logo, $750. A stub with the full logo, I think, goes for around $1,500. And now stub with the logo and name goes for, I haven't seen many of these sold, but this is kind of my ballpark guesstimate.
Yeah.
Now, when you see these type of tickets where the different rip is shown, I mean, what are your thoughts on where the rip is and the value change?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting, and I as a collector, I don't know if I feel that way personally, because to me, it's more about having a ticket that was at the event, presumably, and it's not necessarily what it looks like, but eye appeal does play into it. So it's a good question. Not really something I've considered a whole lot before. I guess for me, I would rather have the lower price one just because it serves its purpose as having a ticket to the event, but it just doesn't cost as much.
And to me, I'm kind of the opposite. To me, it's everything. Like I wouldn't say I have no interest, but for me, unless I'm getting this at like a cheap deal, this is one I would probably just want to, the stub number 1, the one I just probably want to buy to resell. Yeah. This is one I probably would hold on to and put a good price on if I was to sell it. This is one I probably would not sell just because it's like, I think the best version of the stub by far, and it's not even close. And I feel like it should go for a higher value. And then you get the full, which is the full shebang, which are super rare. And, one of these sold for years ago for like 4,000. So I put a guesstimate of like 7,500 to 10, but it definitely could go for more.
Go for a lot more than that.
But, a good example of this is the highest grade stub of this went for around 8,000 in the last Heritage auction, the stub number 2. Mm-hmm. But personally, I would rather own this one at a lower grade as long as it wasn't beat to hell. But I don't know if the market would agree with me, because I want to see, I'm all about eye appeal. But you just want a memento from the game more so,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I don't really care about the grade either, but that brings up a really interesting question, and that is compare stub number 1. Let's say stub number 1 was a PSA 7 and stub number 3 was a PSA 2 or 1. Which one? Let's say 2 because it could still have good eye appeal. Which one would you prefer? The highest grade 7 as stub number 1.
Personally, I guess what the value the market is right now, I would want stub number 3. Or you said 2 or 3. Were you comparing it to 2 or 3?
I was comparing 1 and 3.
Well, no doubt. I'd want like a stub 3 that's a PSA 2, as long as it's not something crazy like a massive crease or something stupid, over the nicest PSA 7 of the stub 1. I know that's a lot of numbers we're throwing out.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I don't think that there's any right or wrong or consensus among the collecting community, but I wonder, because you know that the PSA 7 as stub number 1 would probably sell for more, don't you think? Which one do you think would sell for more on an open auction?
I think right now the stub 1 at the highest grade, if it's a 7, because right now I feel like people, grades are everything. We see that in the card world, man. Like a difference between a 9 and a 10, it's insane. Of course, we know 10s are crazy, but I think it's a lot of I don't know, it's a card mentality. It's more of a card mentality to focus on the grade. And I think I almost feel like it's more of a stub mentality. I think more eye appeal, but I might be wrong. But I feel like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where it's going, because I think we kind of disagree a little bit on.
Yeah. I fully recognize that most people don't agree with me on this, and that's fine. I'm happy to take the lower grade or the lower eye appeal. But for me, eye appeal comes down to what happened to it that wasn't as part of the events of walking into. So the tear doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is is there paper loss? Is there paper residue? Is there tape residue? Is there hole punches? That kind of stuff is what bothers me. I would much prefer not having that than the tear. Where the tear is, that doesn't. It really doesn't matter. There's a few exceptions, and sure, this one, all else being equal, I would prefer having the Pittsburgh Steelers on there. But since it's not equal, I'd rather pay $750 than $4,000. I'd rather pay $750 and not have the Pittsburgh Steelers on there than So
no, these numbers are all kind of guesstimates. The stub 3 could go for like 2,500 or 2, or this is kind of a general framework, but it just kind of shows the different examples, and it's kind of interesting because PSA they're not differentiating the market. Right. I guess differentiates by we'll see what the prices dictate over time, but it's kind of this gray area right now, and we've kind of seen it with like the Jordan's debuts. I mean, the red is like 10 times what the other versions go for, and I think that really, to me, I don't think it's anything other than eye appeal. I don't think since it's season ticket holder, somebody's like, well, this is a season ticket holder version. Well, if the season ticket holder version was pink, people would be like, well, great. Well, who cares? It's pretty similar to the other versions.
Yeah. And I guess it comes down to that each ticket is individual depending on what it looks like and what the situation is and what other ones look like and the different color variations and all the variations of it. And I think it's interesting to point out that PSA does not differentiate, like you said, between where the tear is on a ticket if it's taking off certain amounts that other tickets do have that are better. That doesn't affect the grade at all.
Have we ever had clarification on the rip, like how they grade the rip?
I've never asked Matt that directly, and I'm pretty sure just based on what I've seen, various grades and with various rips, that it doesn't impact it.
Because I'm not so much like if it cuts the logo off, but like some rips are, real jankety and some are cleaner than others. Like I don't know if they ever take that into account. Like, oh, this is a clean rip.
I think it would have to. Take into consideration whether there's a perforation that should be torn on. You know what I mean? Because a lot of tickets have that perforation that you're supposed to tear it on, and if you don't tear it on that, then it looks weird. But some of them, like the Celtics ticket that you were showing, that doesn't have a perforation. They just tore it, kind of in a general area, so they all look like that way. But again, I don't think that PSA differentiates that in their grade.
Right. To another version. Let me see. Basically, I got to go over here. Here's another one. So this is kind of, we talked about the perforations. This is almost like a 3 version. Like this is the Secretariat Derby ticket. So stub number 1, this is one that you pretty much see all the time. Well, here's the second version where it's like partial full, I guess is what you would call it. So you see the full. And I had that Preakness ticket. This is kind of like I said, there's no differentiation on this, but I feel like the vast majority of people, I don't know, would they rather have the middle one over the first one? The first one's like a little cleaner maybe, but it's still,
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Thoughts on that?
And then the other question is if the middle one had an awkward tear, but it had more of the ticket, would that be more desirable? Or would the clean tear missing the audit stub be better? Because you could always pull that off, right?
Right.
And
I feel like the middle one is more desirable, but like these fulls go for crazy multiples. Like other ones we've shown has been like 2x, 4x, 5x. I mean, this is basically a $750 ticket to the full. You're looking at a 10x. And I don't know if it's more of the rarity or if it's really cool because it's got the venue on the right. But man, I remember trying to bid on these. I'm like, man, these go crazy more than the stubs.
Yeah, well, it just has to do with scarcity, just because those, presumably were all used.
Right.
To find a stub that was used, I don't know how many people went to this event, but they would all have one, and how many people didn't go, such that there's a full ticket out there. So that's why, that's why you get the 10x. It's really just supply and demand on that front. But with I do think that the smaller or the partial audit stub tear, like that second one, is interesting because there's a lot of examples like that. I think the Ken Griffey Jr. debut comes to mind where there's 2 audit stubs on the Oakland A's tickets, and oftentimes you'll find one with both of the audit stubs taken off, and it's a smaller ticket versus only 1 audit stub taken off. I personally much prefer the 1 audit stub, but I don't know how the market views that. But yeah, in general, I definitely prefer to have as much of the ticket still there versus, having it torn off if possible.
Yeah. And we go to another one. Shit, I keep clicking the wrong button. This is an interesting one. So there is a WrestleMania 1 stub. And these kind of got crazy when Hogan was signing because I think people were bidding him up just to get signed. I saw him go as high as 7,500, but I think they've kind of come back down. And some of these tickets, like I said, you hardly know what they are. Like, okay, here's version number 1. You're like, okay, WrestleMania, I can make that out. Yeah. And then here's this one where it has the full Titan Sports Inc. presents WWF WrestleMania. And like, to me, I'd rather own the second one and pay a slight premium. Probably not huge, and that kind of is reflected in the market price. And then the full, which of course goes for crazy multiples, but this one of these hadn't sold in a while. But like, the rarity is just as rare as like the Derby compared. I mean, there's a lot more stubs of the Derby and few fulls like the WrestleMania, but I don't know if it would go for roughly more than the 5x, where like a Derby would go for like a 10x. So you like on the high end on some of these, you're seeing 10x's, and then others you're seeing like 4 to 5x. And I don't know if that's a market inefficiency or just this supply and demand, but it's kind of interesting how some of these multiples get really high and others, I wouldn't say get as high, because this multiple would be at maybe it would reach a $30,000, $40,000 sale for a full in the future.
Yeah. But so these numbers, the number 1 versus number 2 is really that much of a difference just because of that tiny little.
No, I think they're pretty close. It's probably, I put like a 1.5x. I think it would go for a little more is my guess. Maybe not though. Maybe it would be about.
But is that where you are on it? Are you, if you saw that one at auction, you'd be willing to pay 1.5?
Yeah. Personally, when I see stubs, if they're ripped, and me personally, I'm not a big fan of box office, and I'm not a big fan of rip stubs unless it kind of shows the full name of the basically event. If I had a Beatles Dallas ticket, and one of the rip tickets I bought, you couldn't even read Beatles, but if the other ticket, you could read the full name of the band. Well, I want that one. If I show it to somebody, be like, oh wow, Beatles played here. But if I showed them the original stub that I first had where you can't read Beatles, be like, what the hell is this? I can't even read it. It says like TLES. And to me, eye appeal is huge, and I just picture it sitting on my, cabinet or mantle and showing the non-collector, and what would he think? And I feel like he would almost always gravitate towards the one that has the full name on it.
So that's kind of how you judge it, based on what the non-collector would see if they just randomly saw it at your house.
Well, I personally, it's just what I like, but then I feel like sometimes you need an outsider's perspective. Like if you showed somebody a PSA 9 Ricky Henderson and a PSA 10 Ricky Henderson and say, hey, this 10 is worth 1.2 million, but this 9 right here is worth about 10,000. They'd be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes you have to listen to that, because it's like maybe you can't see the forest from the trees sometimes, because if you're in the thick of it, you're just following what's going on. But if an outsider looks and they give you that outsider perspective, you're like, what, that kind of makes a little more sense. Now, I may be wrong. The Ricky Anderson 10s may always be infinitely more than the 9s, but it's insane. I guess I know it's supply and demand is a big part of it too.
Yeah, that's everything in cards.
Yeah,
but it's a great point. It's a great point, because it really it applies to tickets so much more, just because there's the scarcity is already there in a lot of cases, and there's so much variability in how they're presented.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to another one. So this is a interesting one, because the eye appeal on these are both amazing. Like the 3, the stub is amazing, and the full is amazing also. And I think, there's not really much to be said. They're both amazing tickets, but I was just kind of showing, like, this is a 10Xer.
What about this one on kind of a side? Would it be more desirable to have the outfield seats where Babe Ruth would have presumably hit the ball, if that was the seat assignment?
I've thought about that before, and I don't know if it really matters, because some people will say, well, this boxing ticket is ringside, which is amazing. You're right there. Or this basketball ticket is a floor ticket. Or, hey, even when you talk about jersey numbers, like, well, this is, Kobe's number 8 or number 24. And I don't know if the market, like cards, has really shown that big of a price difference. Like if you get jersey number for a card, I don't know how much it goes for more, but it's definitely a premium. Yeah. And I don't feel like that's been reflected in the ticket world.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. And a lot of times in the boxing example that you gave, that a lot of times it is ringside tickets that somehow get saved or whatever. And so you see that a lot of those examples. But given, like in this example, I think you see the tickets all over the stadium, but in some cases, and I've heard other people say that they would rather have, if all else was equal, they would prefer the seats where the event occurred, where somebody would have hit the home run, or in the case of the Willie Mays catch where you were in the outfield and it would have been right in front of you or something like that. So interesting, kind of twist to it.
Yeah, just those, gray areas that I feel like over time will probably figure themselves out. Here's another one. So this one I found really interesting. I want to get your opinion. So here's the Kobe debut stub. Roughly, I'd say like around 15K, 12, 15K. And here's the full. And to me, eye appeal wise, I like the stub better, because the full on the Kobe is just a bunch of gibberish. And the stub is so clean, but the full, I know it's rarity and everything, and you can just rip off the bottom part, but I just find it interesting. To me, if I'm looking at it, the stub, I like the look of the stub better.
Yeah, it presents better. It really does. And it is just about the scarcity of it in this case. Definitely.
So it's kind of like, well, should you get a max premium on something like this, where maybe the stub eye appeal is better than the full? Like, some of these you get a 10Xer, like I don't know if a full would be only a 2Xer or a 3Xer, or, I have a 5Xer ish on here. I don't know what it would go for now. But it's just kind of one of those random tickets where the stub eye appeal might actually be better than the full eye appeal.
Yeah, I think in this case, and especially since it's such a high profile ticket, that it all comes down to scarcity. The people who want it and are willing to pay that kind of money, they're willing to pay even more for the right to say that they have something that is that rare. I don't know how many of the fulls there are, but there can't be more than just a small handful, right? Like 3 or 4
Right.
maybe.
Yeah, if something like that.
Yeah.
And then I think again about the outsider perspective, they looked at that and be like, well, this one's 15 and that one's, and I guess you could explain, well, it's the rarity of the ticket.
And that's what it comes down to, the full ticket. I personally haven't, I've always preferred the stubs just because I think in most cases they present better that way. I like the smaller PSA holders, and I like the idea that they were at the game versus the full ticket. And obviously you could just tear it yourself and turn it into a stub if you wanted to, but I don't know, just not for me.
Yeah, that's not happening. After that Jordan Red have done crazy, do you feel like this ticket would be affected, or is it all just the high end tickets? Because I guess the closest comp is to Jordan. Is Kobe, I would say. But are only the super high end tickets going to be affected, or they're all Hall of Fame NBA debuts now affected, or is this Jordan craziness just a Jordan thing?
I think that it's a situation where all of them are going to be impacted, varying to a varying degree depending on availability and who it is, obviously. But it's a rising tide type of situation where it's the whole market is going to be impacted, but not necessarily to that same level, obviously. So expect the Kobe debut to take a bump. That's I would guess. I don't know. I think your copy, I don't know if you still have it, but it's a more desirable one because it would be right in the middle of these, right? Because you have that partial audit stub on it.
Nice. That's the thing. Like this one is a 3 that I pulled off eBay, and I think it was on eBay for like $25K or $29K, and it's like the third nicest version. And I'm thinking, well, dude, if this is the best version of the Kobe debut, and if a Jordan Red goes for 200,000+ ish, like the third best version of the Red Jordan goes for 190,000. Well, the third best version ish, it's maybe not the third but this may be like the fifth best version. I mean, is it really a 10th? I mean, I know Jordan's his own little world, but I haven't seen it being reflected and people going out and being like, well, shit, if the Jordan debut went for this, I better go get me a Kobe debut now.
Yeah. I think that Kobe fans see it that way, that he's on the same level as Jordan, but I don't. I think that there's a very, very, very different level that Jordan is on versus any other NBA player,
right?
Including Kobe. It's just a different world, on a global scale. So
I would agree with that. I think that was all the examples I gave. This is a good one. I didn't pull them up, but Hank Aaron's very similar, where they have those 4 different versions. Yeah. You got the small stub, the middle stub, the big stub. And I'm the same way when I see those. I'm like, I would much rather have the full looking stub. Fulls are hard to find than the little tiny itty bitty stub that's left over.
Yeah, and I think that for the most part, from what I've just anecdotally, that people will say, yeah, there was a Pete Rose debut that was recently sold, but it was a smaller version of it. It was signed, smaller version of it. And I heard multiple people say, yeah, I kind of like a Pete Rose debut, but I don't like that copy because it's so small.
Right.
You hear that quite frequently. So I mean, there's definitely something to it, even though the grade isn't necessarily different, depending on the size of the ticket. So,
Pre-war Dream said, I agree with both of you. This is for earlier comment. The event matters for sure, no matter if it's a stub or a full. However, the event trumps it all with any ticket. There's a few other questions that aren't kind of related to this. I'll probably get to at the end of the show. But that's all the examples, and just kind of wanted to point those out. But it's going to be curious how things play out over time.
Well, so there was the photo that I sent you.
Oh yeah,
the example of the ticket that I wanted to touch on that real quick because it's kind of along these lines, but it's an interesting question also that I wanted to get your take on. So in this case, here you have a larger stub, right? It's just a stub, but it's larger in this, but it's completely detached.
right.
So you have this dilemma of, would you prefer it reattached, which you could do, and then the grade is going to be authentic altered,
Ugh.
or would you remove the bottom part of it, making it a smaller stub, less desirable, like we established, and it'll get an actual grade? What are your thoughts on that?
To me, more I think about it, I think it depends on the ticket. Like if it makes a huge difference on the eye appeal, then I would do it. For this one, I don't think it adds a lot. Like I think I would just roll with the top version. And you'd also have another memento of the bottom version, which still has value.
But what kind of value does that have?
It's still, I don't know anything what this goes for, but say this went for like $5,000. I feel like this would go for like 500 or something like that.
What if the bottom half of it is not identifiable? And I'm not sure if this one is or not. I don't see a date on it. But well, I guess
it says World Championship Games 1928.
Oh yeah, I guess so. In game 3. So yeah, I guess you could identify it. Yeah. So maybe you do have some value there. But let's assume you don't, and it's you're effectively throwing away part of the ticket if you don't send that in with it.
I know what you think.
So you think that it's better just to discard the bottom part and
well, I wouldn't I'm not throwing it in the trash, but now I have two. Now I have one of
yeah. Okay, that's one take. I think I would reattach it and send it in, and it would be authentic altered, and I just don't care. Assuming I'm doing it for my own personal collection, which I mostly do with tickets. If I'm trying to sell it, resell it, or put it up for sale or something like that, then I think you almost have to send in the top part of it only, and then keep the other part as a memento.
Send the top part, sell the bottom.
Because that's how much the authentic altered has impacted, the values on tickets, and it's disappointing, but that the market is what it is.
And then, because people hate seeing those qualifiers, those MKs, pinhole or staple or altered. Man, there's just a major stigma on those, and I don't know if that will change in the future. Yeah. I feel like it's probably always going to be there. When you brought this ticket up, I went and grabbed a couple that I have that are kind of a different example. So let me show you the ones I have, kind of get your thoughts. So this is that greatest game ever played. I know it's hard to kind of see with the reflection, but that kind of gives you a view. So I bought it like this, and it looks like somebody made this taping right here. And me, I would personally would have rather had just this because it has the name of the event, the teams, New York, Baltimore Colts, and then they just tape this and add this tiny little stub on the end. Yeah. But I think the full is cool, but the stub is just, I think
so you would rather have a stub of that?
Right, because it's a big stub. Gives you all the event info. It's big, it's nice, it's clean. If I had the option and I had these two separated before I got it graded, I would have kept them separated and just graded the big one.
So so the scarcity doesn't matter to you because the full is far more scarce than a stub.
Yeah, I would rather have the super clean stub that's big and fancy and nice and doesn't have the tape on it than the full altered. And I feel like the market, dictated, this one wasn't really that expensive. And I think if you had a clean full, it'd go for like $7,500. I think this full altered went for like $1,500 or $2,000. I can't remember what it went for. And then a tiny little stub. Usually you get the stub part. This is what you get. Yeah. What you'll find everywhere, and that goes for like $500, $600, about $500.
So you
So
would
this-
rather have the audit stub.
Yeah, this full really wasn't that much of a premium. I was only paying about 3 times the tiny little stub for a full altered authentic.
Yeah. So crack it out and tear it apart, and
But then I got
your memento left over.
tape stubs on it, so it's already done. It's already been taped. There's no going back now.
Yeah. All right.
I have this one too, which is actually this one actually looks good. So this is a Ted Williams last at bat game.
Yeah.
And you can't even tell, right? See, it's full authentic. This was the old grade, so they didn't do the altered thing, right? You look at it, it looks like a clean full. But when you turn it around, see that it's got that tape on the back.
Yeah.
See that? And to me, I like this. I kind of like this taped on the back because I can't tell when I display. If I showed it to somebody, they're like, "Wow, you don't even see it. It's clean. I don't see the tape." It was a really good job of altering it. But I mean, what would you prefer?
I would prefer it just as it is, and because it's probably only one of 2 or 3 that exists. I don't know. I don't know offhand what the pop is on that, but I know there's not a whole lot of stubs for that game, and you have a full. So,
and again, this wasn't that expensive compared to what a stub has gone for. Because I'm telling you, man, when people see that tape or that altered on the flip, like they're automatically. Some people are just out. They're not bidding on it. So the buyer pool is a lot smaller for those type of tickets.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, it's good opportunity to acquire things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get if you're willing to tolerate those things, which doesn't bother me.
All right, so this was very, very interesting, and I really want to get your opinion on this. So I was watching I don't know if anybody else watched this the other night. Patrick Ryan did a little Instagram video. Patrick Ryan's a huge collector, tickets, everything. Like probably one of the biggest collectors. I don't know. He's in the top something. His collection's huge. Well, he is also a huge ticket consigner / broker where he has large accounts with teams and they work with him directly to help sell their tickets on the secondary market. So somebody brought up like, hey, that was a great move getting this. So this is the Austin Matthews debut. Are you familiar with Austin Matthews?
Yeah.
So he had 4 goals in his debut, and somebody commented like, hey, that was a great foresight to get those tickets. And he's like, you know what? He goes, almost every debut ticket out there was from my account. He goes, what I did is I called them after the game. So I really didn't have the foresight. I called them after the game to get them printed. He goes, but I told them, hey, make sure that I'm pretty sure he said that I called them the next day to get them printed. And he goes, I told them to make sure the print date does not show October 13th, the day after. Make sure the print date shows October 12th. So he basically said, he talked to the head honcho and said, print these tickets out for me, but change the print date. And then he got a huge lot. And I was like, wow, I don't feel like people in the ticket collector community would not. Yeah. So give your thoughts on that.
I think that a lot more of that happens than we're aware of, especially and how is that a whole lot different than if somebody just goes and buys, 500 tickets and doesn't use them to a game and just walks away with them? Then I guess theoretically you could have used them to get into the game, but it's still kind of inauthentic in terms of it being a ticket that somebody used to see the game. So, modern tickets, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, was it even there? Was it ever there? Was it used? Could have it been used? So,
and then I think that, okay, well, PSA hears that. I mean, are these technically now commemorative because they were printed after the game, but the print date shows October 12th, which, is this little right here I was showing earlier. it just kind of gets into these, of course, another gray areas with tickets, which is kind of problematic for people looking to get into the hobby. Now you have some commemoratives, some aren't commemorative, but they look the same.
Yeah. I wonder, you know what? I wonder if the team knew why he wanted that, or like what he was going to do with them, or what the market views it as, because you could interpret that as just straight fraud. I mean, no, because they probably didn't care, like, what's the difference
right
to them, but it does matter in the collecting community significantly. It matters to PSA, it matters to collectors, and the price is significantly different if, depending on the date. So
it's a huge difference. Commemorative between, original, you're talking multiples, between the $50 ticket and maybe a $300, $400, $500 ticket if the date is that one little change.
I don't know, I don't even know how what happened there, or what, like, it's just stories of people telling stories, but yeah, it seems like that's some shenanigans.
It's like, oh wow, this is really a nice little nugget, because I was just randomly watching it the other night and he said all that and I was like, did I hear that correctly? And then this morning I rewound it and watched it again just to verify. I was like, no, he said almost every ticket that's out there was his, because he has a very large account. Then he said, the next day I told them to print them, but make sure the print date shows the previous night.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's crazy. And that just kind of shows you the power. If I call my rep, I already did for the Mavericks opener. I'm like, hey, give me printed tickets. And he's like, I don't think we can do that. But if you are the head honcho, that's the head consigner for a team, you're talking to the head honcho and be like, hey, I spent hundreds of thousands with you. You print me these freaking tickets. And they'll do it for a head honcho, but Joe Schmo, season ticket holder, they go tell you to jump off a bridge. Freaking just, that crap's so frustrating with these teams.
Yeah. I guess the team could just claim that they had already printed them the day before.
Right, of course.
So we'll just go with that story.
Tom says you still see Cub 7 tickets out there advertised as slab is authentic with the Cleve prefix. Yeah, what he's talking about, I actually have one sitting right here. I've been kind of harping on these for a while. So the Game 7, I don't have a Game 7 on me, like right in front of me, but the barcode is different. So like right here, the Game 7s, the commemorative tickets will say CLEV, but the authentic ones that you could use to get in games said like XRL5, it looks like a barcode. They sent out the commemoratives after the fact. And TKD said if Spike Lee wants his Knicks tickets printed, he is getting them printed.
True.
Well, I guess that's just the world we live in, right?
True.
I think that was kind of all we had on the agenda, other than maybe some pickups. Did you guys any pickups?
I do. Let me go over a couple. This one. So let me start with this one. This is a photo, the photo that I sent you. Made an eBay purchase, and it was. Can you pull up the photo?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to let me get my little thing over here. You just want that PSA slab, right?
Yeah, the slabbed one. So this one was on eBay, and it's so you can see that it says laminated, and I thought that it looks like it's tape, and laminated, that's tough to remove, but tape can be removed. And this is Michael Jordan's second game, which is also Michael Jordan's first NBA dunk, which I think is really significant. So I contacted the seller and made a deal and purchased it. And so then I got it home, cracked it out, and removed the tape. And it came out really nice.
That's super clean.
Yeah.
Is this what you're showing, right? It looks just like this.
This is the one. And the tape is right there on top of it, or like off to the side. So it was just strips of tape that were on it, and it was fairly straightforward to remove. So now I'm going to send it back in and get it slabbed as Michael Jordan's first NBA dunk, which I think is a really cool ticket. Second game.
So when you that is a really really cool ticket, but like it's when you say tape, like what is this? This is multiple strips of tape put together.
Multiple strips of Scotch tape, yeah, just laid over the top of it. Somebody probably taped it onto a piece of paper, or like into a scrapbook or something, and then they removed it by using an X-Acto knife to cut it out, and then all the strips of tape were still laying on top of it. And it was back in the day when PSA just would designate it as laminated, that they got it graded, so it showed laminated, even though it wasn't laminated, it was just taped. And then so I removed it. Interesting though, the seller recognized my name when I bought it from him, and he asked me if I was the one who does the show, and so so he knew what I was up to. He knew that I was going to remove the tape, so that's good.
So I guess I had a question, but then I kind of forgot. Was it the blow dry method where you just take the blow dryer and kind of peel it off one by one?
No, that doesn't really work, because you could maybe get the plastic part of it off, but you can't get the tape, the glue, because the hardest problem is the glue. The glue stays on, and you have to be able to get that off. It's there's some method, and you can use various kinds of solvents to loosen up glue, but I've been doing this so much, and so I've done it for high-end tickets, and so I have methods that I use that it's really a skill. Honestly, I've practiced it so much that I've gotten good at it, and I can remove it using certain tools, and yeah, but yeah, just like the ones I did for you, all those Celtics tickets. That's kind of where I learned. I used yours to learn how to do it.
Man, ticket doctor. It's a good skill to have.
Yeah. So moving on, though, I had another kind of interesting story. It's similar to what we were talking about last show, about how you sometimes have eBay sales stolen from you. So this is a Mariano Rivera debut, and it was in a lot of tickets, and it was $90, and I bought it for $90. Buy it now. And I absolutely did not expect to get it. And of course, the next day, the seller messaged me and said that he made a mistake and blah, blah, blah. But he was honest. About it. He just straight up said that he made a mistake and he couldn't sell it to me. And so I asked him, I kind of gave him an idea of what it was worth, and then I offered him 80% of that, because I already have one, so I wasn't really super anxious to get it. But I was curious if somebody else tried to buy it or did buy it from him, so I wanted to know if they did, because I wanted to know who it was. And he said nobody. He still had it, and he wanted to sell it at auction or something. So I made him an offer on it, and then a couple of days or a couple of hours later, he texted me. He sent me a text message, and I didn't realize that that eBay sellers have access to your phone number. Do you have that?
Man, I guess if you go digging enough, maybe they can find it. But no, I've never dealt with somebody texting me after a sale.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. But he sent me a text message, and so we did the deal off eBay, and worked out for both of us. So I grabbed another Mariano Rivera debut. Pretty cool.
Very nice.
Yeah. Let's see. I got this. This came in a trade. This is Don Drysdale's first win. A pretty rare ticket. You don't see those every day. And I also picked up the Wade Boggs debut that was on eBay.
Did you already have one, or did you need one?
Yeah, I already had a Wade Boggs debut, but this one's in such nice shape. It's probably like a 7.
That's very nice.
It's like in perfect condition.
Super clean.
The one I have is a 7, and that's the highest grade. So I'm hoping that this comes back an 8. I also grabbed this one, which was kind of fun. This game is the game that Harry Carey broadcasted in his underwear. And there's a famous photo. You could look it up. There, if you look up Harry Carey underwear, there's a very, very famous photo of him standing in this broadcast booth in his underwear. And it was this game, and I thought that was cool. I really love the tickets that are associated with a famous photo. And that one is definitely a famous
Where's
photo.
that type one? I guess this is the picture, right?
There it is. So a ticket to that game. How about that? There was another one that sold right after too. That was so the person who was selling them had two of them, and so there was another one out there too.
I don't think young people understand how wheels off Harry Carey was.
Yeah.
I don't even know Harry Carey, to be honest, unless you're a Cubs fan. Then probably most of them really know who he is.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard his voice though.
Right.
People, I mean, even if you are a casual fan, never saw him or anything. So what have you picked up? Anything?
A small one and a big one. So I'll show you the small one first. So this is Randy Moss, 3 TDs on Thanksgiving Day, his rookie year. It's kind of like he caught 3 balls that day for 160 yards ish and 3 touchdowns. So it was kind of a crazy, I wouldn't know if it was his coming out game, but it was just like this guy's unbelievable game. These are only like $100, $150, but it's a really fun. If you're a Randy Moss fan, that's like one of his signature games.
Yeah.
I told you I bought some at the Heritage auction, right?
Ooh,
last show. I know it's the one that you're not a huge fan of, but I've been trying to get this one forever, and I finally just bit the bullet. So it's the fix game,
nice.
Game 1. So I've been chasing it for a while, and it's just this one I just finally had to bite the bullet. It's not like I got a good deal on it or anything, but it's just one I've always been on my list.
Does this mean you're going for the entire complete run?
I don't. I thought about it because I did get that game 5, and I'm like, well, I got 2 of the 8. Yeah. And I think it is something really cool, and I think it's something collectors will always be interested in. Yep. So I kind of put some offers on. There's a few out there, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe over time. But then the game 8 is just crazy, but it is a super cool ticket. So I might, but I've kind of realized, like, I think you said something before, like, I don't know what Mike really collects, but I guess I realized a big part of what I like to collect is tickets that have names, like nicknames, like the Fix Game or the Immaculate Reception. Or, I could probably just look at my wall and kind of like the Miracle, the Miracle, of course, the Miracle on Ice, the Music City Miracle, all those, the band is on the field.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I like, the college, that have that name. So I kind of like, oh yeah, I guess maybe that's a big thing I like to collect. So that kind of fits right in with it.
And all the various shots. There's so many different shots. The shot ticket. If I said the shot ticket, you don't know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was
the
multiple.
catch.
The catch. The first dildo game was Tom says.
I'm not familiar with that one.
So WNBA games.
Right. Yeah. Is there a first? What about the Phillies Karen game? Is that a ticket that's out there?
I wonder if that's there's someone, like I said, that's kind of the great thing about tickets. There's like always something. Like somebody posted the video of Kobe Bryant was at one of the games, and they're like, "Oh, this is Kobe's first TV appearance game." I was like, "Well, now those are going to start being collected for a small amount." It's just kind of funny how things take on a life of their own.
Lots of different types of tickets and collections out there.
A couple random questions of pre-war dreams, as he says. Basically, what about full tickets of sporting events that did not take place, i.e. World Series tickets or game that did not take place? Those are basically just called phantom tickets. That's kind of their nickname, and they really don't have much value unless, like, the COVID game ticket where they canceled is considered a phantom ticket. The Rudy Gobert, but I think that's the only one off the top of my head I could think of that has value.
Yeah.
Here's kind of just a general. Hey guys, love the content. Question for later in the show: have either of you guys ever bought a ticket and when it came, it had unexpected multiple copies? Also, how do you gauge low pop debut pricing? Shuan, take that one.
So the unexpected multiple copies is like you didn't realize that the person was going to sell a lot more of them.
Probably like, you bought one and next thing you know, 6 months later, 5 more come out.
Oh yeah, that's that's frustrating, isn't it? Because you probably paid a lot more for it, and now the market. It only takes, and that's the thing. It only takes, in a lot of cases, it would take 5 or 6 copies to really depress the original price if it was originally rare. So an example of that I can think of offhand was the game where Lenny Randle blew the ball foul in the Mariners in 1982. You know the famous highlight reel where he got down on his hands and knees and blew the ball foul. Somebody sold one of those on eBay, and it was a full, and I bought it. It was just in a lot. And then he contacted me and asked me why I paid so much for the lot, and I told him what it was, and I also told him if he had any more. So then I bought another one from him, only to find out that he had like at least 6 of them, and and then a bunch of other people got them too. And so I thought it was an extreme, because the attendance at that game is like 5,000. It was just a really low attendance, maybe 7,000, something like that. So I thought that's a super rare ticket, but no, it's not. There's 5 or 6 fulls out there, and then stubs. Who knows? There's multiple stubs also. So yeah, that's an example of when I got it. Now it's just not nearly as rare as I thought.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, example, the 10-cent beer night ticket. That's like a $3,500-ish, maybe $5,000 ticket, because it's so rare. But if 8 or 10 of those came out, it would cut the value, by more than half. So it's like you don't really know. It's crazy that the ticket's so rare, because there's like 40, 50,000 people there. So you would think, more going to come out, but they just haven't.
Yeah.
So it's just, you just never know, really.
And then on the other side of that, like the Jordan debut, because there's such a huge market for it, dozens have come out, and it's still, the market still supports it. So it can go both ways.
His other question also, how do you gauge low pop debut pricing?
I compare it to other ones that have sold, that not of that person. So for example, a debut of a Hall of Famer that you never see. So let's say Frank Thomas. Right? You don't usually see Frank Thomas debut sell, but you do see other Hall of Famers that are on the same level, sort of in popularity, have similar types of fan bases, and played in the same era. And you look at what those go for, assuming the pops are similar. And you could usually find one that sold, as an example, as a place to start, and then you go from there. But that's how I do it. And usually you can find a parallel.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I think we talked about this past show, like NBA debut tickets, I feel like they've kind of been suppressed price wise, but then like, is the Jordan debut stuff going to affect them? Like, you could get like a Kevin Garnett debut, like I had, for like $2,500, and they're pretty rare. Like there's less than 10, and a Jordan debut goes for 200,000. Like, what was it? Is that going to affect things? Like maybe not, because they're just like in different stratospheres.
Yeah. And NBA, I don't know why, but NBA is just different, and so is NFL, where the players' popularity kind of it kind of goes down over time. Kevin Garnett was huge back in the day, but now are there Kevin Garnett fans?
Yeah, it's just like baseball is just a different animal.
Yeah, it's the only sport where a player's legacy can get more prolific as time goes on after they retire. Whereas in basketball and football, it seems like, other than Jordan, their legacy always kind of goes down. So
yeah, because you're a big Griffey guy, and I feel like after he retired, it was like, he had a great career, but it was actually kind of almost a little disappointing, because everybody thought he would try to go for the Ruth record, and then I feel like 20 years later, he's more popular. He was just as popular now as he was in his prime.
Yeah, which is a great example, because in the second half of his career, he was horrible, or not horrible, but he just was not good. I think the parallel to that today is Mike Trout. Because Mike Trout, the first part of his career was phenomenal, easy Hall of Famer. But in the second half of his career, he's been really injured all the time and just not that good a player anymore. He can't run anymore. And so using that as a parallel, I guess you can project into the future that maybe Mike Trout is the guy to grab now because, maybe he's going to – people will remember him as the first half of his career, not the second half of his career.
Right. TKD7, Shuan is waiting for 10 Derek Jeter debuts to hit the market.
I already got mine. Now I don't want any. But I've always assumed that was going to happen. But I think on that point, I think Derek Jeter is kind of like that, where the market's always going to absorb the population that's out there. So because he's so popular, because he's a Yankee, and yada yada yada.
Tom mentioned Woodstock tickets. This is a good example because there's so many of them out there. And I think the ignorant collector doesn't realize the pop report, but 10s get absorbed. The 9 and 8s kind of, cheap, but there's just a ton, because the whole story of they stormed the rushed the gates and they didn't buy the tickets. So they had, thousands left over that went unsold. And Answer said, Mr. Stacks of them out there is surprised when somebody actually has a stack of them.
Yep, it happens.
That's a good question. Why is there a lack of popularity for media passes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always wondered the same thing because I think that they're pretty cool and they're usually quite rare. The only thing that I find not as appealing about them is that they weren't available to fans. So you had to have some kind of inside track to get them. And so, the part of the appeal of a ticket is that any ordinary person could have acquired one at the, when it occurred, but not the case with media passes. It's more of an exclusive club.
I don't like some of the media passes that have the people's names on them. That always throws me for a loop because I don't want some Joe Schmo random's name on it. But some are really cool. Like the 47, of course, the Jackie 47 media pass, like the season is really cool. And I think there's other ones that are probably undervalued. But yeah, I guess it's just not in the same realm of tickets.
Yeah, for some reason.
Well, shoot, I thought this was going to be a short show, but this is actually quite a long one.
We always find a way to talk.
We like the long.
Yeah.
No TikTok stuff for us. No snippets. We dive deep. Well, I think that's probably a good stopping point, unless we had anything else.
That's it for me.
All right. Mariners, they gonna make the playoffs? They're gonna make a run to the World Series.
I was going to ask you the same thing about the Rangers.
The Rangers thing is crazy. They like lost half their team and they just find ways to win. It makes no sense.
They're starting that series tonight against Houston, right? So that's gonna tell a lot.
I feel like it's gonna catch up with them. Like it can't continue when you lose your 4 of your 6 best players. But you somehow just win, and now you're hitting the crap out of the ball. It's just been a bizarre season. So I'd be really surprised if they somehow made some kind of run. Mariners, I don't know. I feel like they got some pieces. Julio's heating up.
They're hot. 9 games in a row.
Really? Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they won 9 in a row now. They're in first place by themselves.
Wow.
So.
Well, the Saturday I did attend the Notre Dame A&M game. I don't know if you saw any of that, which was an insane-o game.
I didn't.
It basically was came down to the last play, 4th down. So it was pretty crazy. But for all those college football fans, they were like, "Oh man, that was like the game of the year." So I just got back yesterday. And Justin,
you're a Notre Dame. Are you a Notre Dame guy?
It's weird because I'm a Notre Dame, grew up a hardcore Notre Dame fan, but then I went to A&M. But all my family lives in Notre Dame, so it was like an excuse to go see the fam and go to a really cool game. But I didn't know who to root for. But at the end, I was kind of rooting for A&M because they've never really won anything big, and they're like the underdog. And my nephew was going crazy for them. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna pull for the Aggies here at the end. So it was a fun game to be at. Well, all right. I think that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Follow us, enjoy, comment, be nice if you can. And, hopefully we'll be back in a week or two and see you then. Alrighty, have a good one.
See ya.